You gonna hang around or you're gonna take off or what? See, I don't think I was gonna join in necessarily. Hello, good evening, welcome.
Hello.
I don't really think we're gonna be. Oh, you know what though? I will point this out. This is really for the people that aren't gonna be here. So I'll set it up. Because what's nice about Zoom is that I could create a video recording and then just upload it to YouTube, which is nice.
Is there a sign-in sheet?
Yeah, it's right there by the sanitizer is. Let me. Got a pen. I don't have one there handy, but you could go ahead and just fill that in. See you tomorrow. Huh? Yeah, see you. No, I'll leave it open, yeah, because we have more scouts coming in. You guys were last time when you parked, there's no issue, right? You parked on the back. Okay, good. Yeah, I didn't think so because the person that's there leaves at around 5 o'clock anyway, so before that even. Okay, so yeah, go ahead and sign in to there, and I'm gonna keep going. I'm just gonna keep rock and rolling here because I wanna make sure I get to everybody that's here, that I can take a look at. Have your workbooks out, right? Now, did you guys see the recap, the email I sent you guys out for what I wanted for you guys to have, right, for this session, right? Okay. So just have that available. And what I do want to talk to you guys now, right? So I'm gonna pull up the Scout workbook. Anybody here? I know it's a personal choice, but anybody who got vaccinated already that are eligible? Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, that's good. Which one did you guys do? The Moderna or Johnson & Johnson? Pfizer?
They have to be the Pfizer.
You get Pfizer?
Well, because they're underage. I think
It was the approved one. Wasn't it just, was Pfizer the only one approved? Or I thought Moderna was approved too. No? Oh, it's Pfizer. Okay. I thought okay, maybe I heard wrong.
That was the only option for.
Okay. So you're probably right. We have one too, and I guess they say it's just a 2-shot one, but they didn't specify if it was Moderna or Pfizer actually. So I suppose it is. You've done it already, so you're definitely got more. You got more pull on that one.
Right.
The more experience there. Okay.
Yeah, I did the Moderna with my kids.
All right. So. All right, so any of you have, let's go over the workbook. I know you guys, you had the whole month to start working on it. I hope you guys actually did start working on it, right? And was there anybody have any questions off the bat as far as what they've included so far, or was everything pretty clear, right, with the instructions? Okay. All right, so I wanted to go ahead and someone want to discuss what they actually, because I wanted to use an example from one of the scouts as far as what is a major expense. What would you have considered a major expense? What did someone put down as a major expense? Who wants to share? Sorry, your name then? Your name? Brady. Okay. Okay. What kind of a TV? Sorry, say one more time. Okay. Yeah, okay, perfect. I'm glad you said that because here's the one thing I want to tell you guys now. And I want you to think of this as a great habit to have at a very young age. Okay. The word is specificity. Okay. What is that word? Specificity is what? Is being the action of being, it's an adjective, it's being specific, right? So when you said, I don't know, I was kind of just looking around, right? It's fine. I understand what you're doing as a project, right? But again, it's a good practice to do what? Be specific as much as possible, right? There's two big reasons for that. Two big reasons for that, right? Here's a reason. Okay, so the first reason is if you're not specific enough, you're gonna get something that you didn't want, or you're going to somehow you're gonna cause a bend in your decision. Here's a saying. I don't know if you guys have ever heard this before, but if you don't stand for something, you will fall for anything. Right? Do you guys know what's that reference to? I mean, there's many references for it, but what can you say in reference to that saying that if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything? Anybody have an idea of what I'm talking about in terms of right? So, but you heard it before, probably, right? Have you heard that before? Sounds familiar, right? It's one of those, what does it call those cliche things to say? I guess, right? Right. So if you don't understand, let's say you don't know math, right? You don't know 2 + 2, right? So if someone does and they tell you, hey, 2 + 2 is 4, right? I mean, what are you gonna do? You can't say, no, that's not right, right? Or you can't say, oh yeah, you're right. You can't say that either. You cannot answer that, right? So if you don't decide to be specific from the very beginning, right? Here's an example, okay? Who here wants to make more money? Okay, great. I'll give you a buck. Okay, you made more money. So you're done. Are you done? Have you accomplished your mission? You made more money, right? See, but that's not. See, the thing is, maybe you didn't want a dollar, right? You wanted more than a dollar, right? So you weren't specific enough, right? So that's what I'm saying. So that's okay. So I want you to go back and really dig in a little bit more. Be specific, because why do I say that, right? It goes back to, it'll lead you to this right here. Comparison shop for the item, right? So what is ideal, right, is that here's what I suggest. And I'm gonna pull up a website here. You can use any site. I mean, Amazon's great, right? We'll talk about Amazon in a little while. Right? So, you said TV, right? Would you want like a 4K TV? Like, let's say 4K LED TV. What size? What size are you looking for? Ready? So small and big are very subjective terms, right? Subjective. So like, what are you trying to fit it into? Are you trying to fit it into like a desktop area, or are you trying to put it into like a wall, or are that's kind of a. Okay, it's mounted. Yeah. Okay. You want to replace the existing size, or not? You want to get bigger, more bigger? You want like a little bit bigger, about the same size. So what I'm pondering a guess, it's probably around like between 43 and like 50 inches. What is it now? You think around there? So let's say, huh? Oh, like this one, right? So it's like this is a 55 actually. So these are 55s. So like, yeah, let's go with that, right? 55. So now when you have this up, right, now you can start comparing. What you can even do with this, right? There's even like a option to like compare them side by side. As far as like the you by company, by type, right? So why am I sharing this with you, right? Because when you start to do these things on your price shop for you, like when you start using your own money to buy these big ticket items, you're gonna be glad that you know these things, because why? Now you're gonna be able to save anywhere between, I don't know, 60 to 200 plus dollars on a TV, right? When you find a better deal. And what can you spend with the 200 bucks, right? I wouldn't spend it. I actually save it. I'd put it in stock. I'd buy a Samsung TV and then put the rest of the money into Samsung stock. That's what I would do, right? Yeah. So we'll talk to you guys about that. That's when I talk about being specific, right? So this is all part of number one. The TV, good. In this section where it says discuss the plan with your merit badge counselor, right? You can write some of the things I'm talking about now. Oh, my merit badge counselor said we should practice being specific about our purchases because it'll help us decide better, and then we can, because here's the thing about being specific, and this doesn't just for TVs. This is one example, right? When you're looking for something that you absolutely want, right? And you've got it down to a few choices, right? Then you're less inclined to impulse buy. You're less like, okay, well, I have this budget aside from TV. I'm gonna spend X amount of dollars, right? If I go over that amount, I can't buy the TV. I'm not gonna buy the TV. I'm gonna practice good discipline with my money and go, no, right? I'll find something that fits my budget. Like that's the thing about, and why I talk about that, right? It's about the psychology of money. Okay, I'm gonna show you guys a quick 9-minute video later on. It's about neuroscience. It's gonna help you guys understand. I know it's like, what, neuroscience, right? It might like, well, this sounds a little too advanced. It's not that advanced. But what you will find, it's very helpful to understand how feelings, how things about like money, okay, how would you feel, right? If you're like, your aunt gave you 20 bucks and you haven't seen her in forever, and then like you went to run home and then you lost $20 while you were running. How would you feel after that? What's your feeling? Like you probably feel what? Sad, horrible, like, oh man, So there's these types of emotions you'll feel in certain circumstances with money, right? Let's say you bought something and then like you walk down the street and you go, hey, you know what? Didn't I just buy the same thing for like $5 more? Right? How'd you feel then, right? There's all these kinds of feelings. So this helps you with, this all leads back to impulse buying. What is impulse buying? Buying without thinking about it, or buying because you just feel like it. You just want it because, oh, it's cute. Oh, it's, oh, it smells nice. There's no other thought behind the purchase itself. So that's bad. Why? Why is that bad? Why is impulse purchasing bad? You might not actually like the item you're buying. One, it might not even provide you any kind of utility. It's not useful for your life, and you spent, you might think $5 here now, right? But if you do that over a whole month, right? If you do it 2 or 3 times a week, right? $5, not even every day, right? There's 2 or 3 times a week. So 3 times a week is $15. $15 times 4 weeks is $60. So you just blew $60, where I could have shown you to put it into something like maybe a savings account, not even a savings account, right? I stay away from those, right? You got to put them in something that'll work for you, right? So you talk to somebody like your parents about finding a way to put it into an investment, right? Now I'll show you more about that too as we go along. So specific, okay? Being specific is very important, right? Very, very important. I want to make sure I share that with you. Discussing the plan with your family. I want you to actually discuss the plan with your family. Take the time, right? I know I'm not going to see you, but so I'm asking you to use your Scout's honor to actually discuss the plan with your family, and think about, discuss how other family needs must be considered in the plan. So with the TV, right? Is it everybody on board with it as far as your parents? I mean, if it's a child desire, are the parents on board with it, kind of thing, right? Or why or why not, right? Like that. That's, you know, you want to find out, and what are some of those factors that affect that decision. That's what I'm really trying to get you to understand. Because now, what are you going to find out? You're going to find out that it's not, you know, the world doesn't revolve around Reggie, right? You know, it's not about me. It's not about me. Okay, it's not about what I want in my life, right? I got to consider, if you have siblings, right? Like I said, then it's, you know, then you got to like consider everybody's needs too, right? So that's the thing about discussing the plan with the family, right? Considering what must be met. Developing a written shopping strategy. That one is, yeah, you can come up with a strategy. Hey, I waited for a sale, uh, or my brother actually works for Amazon and he got me a discount. You know, something like that. Something that is actually true that you could actually use, right? Determine the quality of item and service using consumer publications. For consumer publications, where's the best place to go that you might know of a place that you might know already? Anybody know where to go to find out, you know, like reviews? What is consumer publications? Anybody know what a consumer publication is? Mom's giving a hint. Yeah, that's okay. So here, I'll show you guys, right? The consumer publication. Actually, one of them is just what? Consumer products. Product. Consumerreports.org. So that's the one, actually, consumerreports.org. Right. So, oh, they make you pay now? Oh, no. Well, I think, yeah, there was a magazine for them some time ago. I'm sure that's why they're doing that. But you could probably, other ones are like CNET. You ever heard of CNET? CNET does like product reviews. Yeah. So everything, phone, TVs, laptops, printers. So look at those, and then again, try to add some tidbits of what you found out, right? Because of TV, right? Like, oh, what's the rate? Like, here's what you want to find out, right? So determine the quality of the item or service, right? So the item, like, did this TV have malfunctions? Like, and how many times were they reported? Like that. Those are consumer reports. Like you know, that's the, you know, find out about the products that you're the specific product that you're ordering, like a phone, for instance, right? Like, you guys remember the Note 7s back in the day? Like, maybe you guys are too young to remember because you guys are really young, but maybe the parents remember that they blew up, right? So those are part of consumer reports, and the people were sending, you know, all the information to say, okay, well, okay, Note 7, and actually, right, out of like you know, however millions of phones they made, there was actually just a handful of explosions. There was like 20, right? So you know, but it was big enough. It got in the news, it freaked out a lot of people, right? Because, you know, I mean, you're not gonna bring a Note 7 on the plane if there's a 0.00001% chance it might explode, right? He's like, nope, we're not gonna bring that on the plane, right? So that's, you know, there's just some things that you want to find out. Put that there. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, budget and expected income. Let me see. I guess Brady was. Let me take a look at your worksheet and have a review at that. I want to see if you got a. This part. You haven't done that? Oh, you haven't. Okay. Anybody start working on their budget and their okay. Oh yeah, you have this, right? Okay. Got it. Okay. And actually, they changed the way the workbook looks now slightly. They have you have the one that was yeah, that's it. Okay. this is good.
Oh, yeah. it's good.
All right, I like that. I'm glad you did the zeros, right? Because it also lets you know that it's not a question of, oh, was there a value or not? You can zero. That's not counting. Zero on the eyes. Say that, I know. It's like, if anybody here is like slightly OCD, if you have that like, here's an example of my OCD. I used to work at the bank. Right? I used to do some telework. All my bills in my drawer had to face the same way, right? Facing up, and the new bills were on the bottom, the old bills were on top. I want to give out the old bills first. I want to keep the new bills in my drawer. I don't like giving out new bills. I like to keep them. I'm a new bill hoarder. That's my, and then like the coins, I literally, like my rolled coins are stacked nicely, and then my broken coin are like, they're actually like, I don't know how I do this, but I roll them up like in a roll inside of the cashier, section where the space where the coins are. There's a limited place. I actually like keep them rolled up. That's like, sorry. But if you're OCD, this looks nice. Oh, hey, all the zeros in it. All the zeros in it. So it's a key. I mean, but again, like I said, if you start these habits when you're younger, the organization, then as you get older, you're like, no, it doesn't look right, and then you'll start spotting these things a lot, like by natural ability, because you started doing it like this at a younger age. This is good. Ours as well. Did you do that? So, okay, we got some time. So now take a look. This is an example, right? So you want to, you have a difference here. So it looks like we budgeted for 20. We actually spent 10 cents over budget, so the difference is 10 cents. So yeah. And month one is done. Month one should be complete, right? So this is not the start of month two, and then you have all the way until is it warm over there? Or is this that fan hitting you back there? Is that okay? Do you want to like turn up a little more, or is that? Because I feel like it's getting a little bit warmer in here. You're okay. All right. Let me know because I have the fan right there pointing this way. I can turn up a little bit more. All right, so, but yeah, so just I timed it correctly. So the first month, right? You have 4 weeks in or to this point, right? So this week you should be starting the 5th week already, right? So from this point on, right? Just again, if you wanna track your budget, go ahead and recalculate. Go ahead. So this is your oh, you know what? Let me look at the weekly one. So you did your weekly one too, right? I saw that. Okay. Says that's good. I guess this we covered 13 weeks. This is more. It looks more like an actual check register. You ever seen it before? Like the check registers like this. I'll show you an example. Register. Actually, you know what? I actually don't use mine because of online banking. It makes it easier. So register looks like this. I'll pass this. You guys have seen this before? Maybe your parents have shown you. That's a register, right? So then what you're doing here, this is more like a spreadsheet where you're like it's like a bookkeeping type of style. So this one is more like so I'm showing this guys out there. You see a register report, so there's a register report, right? This is the more spreadsheet style that is being used by journaling entry. Whereas this one, like if you do a register, so that you can see like the personal records. It's a little bit different, but the style, how you're doing it is good. I think you're working on it now. Awesome. You had some. Okay, for example, okay, that's perfect. Well, how much is it? after I saw that, I'm just gonna copy this. If you copy the examples, I'm okay with that. As long as you make sure they're your real stuff though. You know, copy this format. I'm saying the style of how they look. That's what I meant to say. Not exactly from that section. You don't want to do that. That's called plagiarism. in other terms, right? And you don't want to do that ever. Okay. Let's see. Now, your answer here, if income exceeds budget expenses, state how you would use the excess money. How would you use the excess money? If your income exceeds your expenses. If income exceeds budget expenses, state how you use the excess money, right? So your parents are in the room. What do you say? The parents are in the room.
I was gonna say you could save it.
Yes, that's great. But see, you know what? Even when the parents aren't in the room, that should be your answer too. Right? You know, yeah, it's very tempting to go, you know what? I want to spend it on X item, whatever it is, you know, whether it's electronics or what is it, V-Bucks or, you know, Valorant. You know, I don't know if you guys play these kids play Valorant. My son does. You know, they want the extra gift card so they can buy stuff with it, you know, like you buy digital armor. Well, what's it gonna do what's good for you in real life? Like, you can't put it on in real life and protect you, can you? Like things like that. So save it. But better yet, invest it in something that can actually yield more back for you, right? All right, so let's see. We're doing the track and report of income expenses. Okay, let's talk about this now. So this is the section where discussing the 5 concepts, right? And there's actually total of 8. Okay, but I'll go over some of this with you so that way you have some. I'll ask you guys if you have something filled in and you can shout the answer out. We can discuss it too because I feel like this is something that we definitely should talk about. It's that important, right? So when you receive money, and how can you receive money? What's the most popular way to receive money? Gift in terms of which kind of gift? There's two major gifts every year. Birthday and Christmas, and hopefully your birthday's not by Christmas because you only get one, right? That's how, you know, some cultures are, right? Oh, it's same. Oh yeah, here it's all in one gift, right? So, but what do you feel when you receive money? Happy, right? You're like, ooh, I can buy that thing I want to now, right? That's the first thing. The first words come out of our children's mouths. What can I buy? Ooh, ooh. They get the Scooby Doo. Ooh, all right. So yes, you feel good. It feels great, right? How about I tell you, right? That so what do we? Let's discuss this. And I'm gonna tie this into the video I'm gonna show you guys here in a few moments. Okay, so what is that? What is money tied to? So what can you do with fiat money, which is what it's called, fiat money. That's what because if you deal with banks, right? There's cash money, which is called fiat money, and then now there's called cryptocurrency, which is different. I won't really go there, right? But it's tied to what? Being able to get something, right? Being able to get your needs, right? You can pay the rent, you can buy food, right? So what is that tied to? It's tied to a neurochemical called dopamine. What is dopamine? Well, dopamine helps you get stuff done. What does it do, right? Well, it's a motivator. It's a neurochemical that if you get shot with dopamine to your system, you're like, oh, you're gonna get more focused on doing what it is you need to do. What does it also affect? Cell phone usage. Okay, so I'm gonna share this with you guys. Let's go through these 5 or 8 right now, okay? And then I'll show you the video. Your understanding of how the amount of money you have with you affects your spending habits, right? So obviously, right, if you have less money with you, you can spend less, right? But that's also a product of planning ahead, right? What do I mean by planning ahead, right? If you know you're gonna go somewhere like, hey, I'm gonna go with my friends. I probably shouldn't bring all my money with me, right? That's probably not a good idea. I probably shouldn't take the debit card out with me. You know, if you have a debit card, like your family, if you have a team checking account with your parents, one thing is they can see everything you're buying, right? You don't want that either. You're like, what are you buying? What are you buying? Right? You don't want that conversation to happen. But two, you don't want to take all your cash with you, right? But how does it affect you? Okay, so why does it affect you? Why does it affect your spending habits? What is that feeling? What is the feelings that would be described? Why is it when you have more money, you want to spend more of it? Because you have the money. One, if you're around your friends, what does it do? What does it make you feel like when you're spending money around your friends? Like, let's just say like, okay, you're at the mall, right? And you're like, you got the money and you're like, hey, I want to buy something. And your friends are there, right? But well, you're like, oh, it's like you feel like you're significant because you're spending the money in front of your friends, makes you feel like again, your status is right, showing off. It's called showing off. Like, we've all done this. We're all human beings. I know that. I'm a human being. Okay, I'm not an alien. I know that feeling. Right? Like showing off is cool. Like you feel like you feel significant for a moment, and that makes you feel good. That also is tied to dopamine as well. Okay, so I'll tell you that. So be careful with that, because if you start getting the feeling of like, oh, my friends, I'm gonna bust out my $100 bills, yeah, I'm gonna bam, spend it, like that. You might make you feel good temporarily, but what does it really do? You're showing off to your friends that you have money, and guess what they're gonna do? Hey man, can I borrow some money? Hey man, can you buy this for me? Right? Like, oh, come on. See, now you're opening the door for like requests that you don't want. Right? So that's another thing to be careful of, right? So that's, leave your money at home. Listen to your parents. Don't take your money with you, right? You'll thank them for it. Your thoughts when you buy something new, and your thoughts about the same item 3 months later. Give me someone give me an actual example. I know you probably have one. You're like, oh man, what is it? What's the example? Anybody ever bought something, and then what did you feel about it 3 months later? This one here.
I still like the item.
Okay, good. That's good. Now, has there been a time where you felt something differently than like, and what was that example like? Right? Maybe not for you. Okay, that's good. You're very grateful, man. I like that. So that's a good trait to have. So being grateful for the things you have. It's always a. But what is a tendency for some people to buy something, one, on an impulse, and then when they look at it 3 months later, they're like, right? Does anybody, do you or anybody in your family kind of do that? Like they buy something and then like after 3 months they just don't use it anymore, right? So that might happen, right? So again, be careful with your purchases, because you're gonna have to think about it. Hey, look, am I really gonna use this 3 months from now? Am I really gonna use this a year from now? Or this is something that I thought was cool because my friend bought it, right? And I thought it'd be cool to have what they have, and so I bought it too. Right? You got to be careful with those kinds of impulse purchases, right? But that's, again, it's all tied to emotions, right? Tied to your feelings. Now, what is the concept of buyer's remorse? Who wants to share that? What they wrote down, if they had one. And if you didn't write something down, better write down what the person said. Yes.
It's like buyer's remorse is the fact that you feel like you wasted the money.
Feel like, okay, so you feel like you wasted money, right? Buyer's remorse. So that's usually, there's a few reasons for the buyer's remorse, right? One is you bought one. Anybody have an example that they can think of? What's one example of actual buyer's remorse? Like, here's one for you, right? So I buy something, and then it's one of those items that you can't return. There's no like a final sale only kind of thing, right? And then when you buy it and then it breaks, and you're like, oh man, I knew I shouldn't have bought that, because you're one of those like shady shops on the corner, and they don't look like they're very honest people, but you still did it anyway because you thought it was cool. So you got scammed. That feeling, right? Like buyer's, that's one example of buyer's remorse. Another example is when you buy something when you really know you didn't have the money to begin with, to buy the thing with. And then you go, man, you know what? I shouldn't have bought that because I really needed to buy something else, but I bought this thing instead. And now I can't return it because it's one of those things that I bought and I can't return it. Whatever the case may be, right? So that's another. There's two ways of buyer's remorse, and you have to understand what one does versus the other, right? And they're both bad feelings, right? Buyer's remorse, they're both bad, but one could be prevented. Actually, they're both being prevented, actually, but one is just a different way. Hunger. Here we go. Right? What? Anybody know what hungry eyes means? Right? Like, and what? Why is that? Why do hungry eyes happen? I got some mommy calling outs here. So what is that? So what's that? So what's that tied to? It's still tied to dopamine, by the way. I'm tying that all. It's still tied to dopamine because when you're hungry, your body is telling you what you need, some kind of energy, nutrition. You're missing something, right? It's a stimulus, meaning not the kind of government gave, a body stimulus, like something, not the ones the government gave. It's a stimulus, like like hunger is a stimulus, right? That's like something that triggers an action, right? If you're talking about food, it might stimulate your hunger, right? That's what I mean, right? So, well, how does it affect you? What are some of the effects when you're hungry and then you have money to spend? What ends up happening sometimes? Maybe you end up, or maybe you're not buying the food, right? But maybe you're at like a buffet, or like you're at some party, right? And then you just like grab a whole bunch of food and you're like take 2 bites and you're like, oh, I don't want to eat anymore, right? So what do you think happened there? What do you think? What were you going through in your mind at the time? You're pretty hungry and you didn't know what to get. You didn't know what to get. Okay. Let's think about that, right? Everything looked good when you're hungry, right? So you got to be careful with that sometimes because you have the best way to avoid that, right, is to really understand like how much food that you should really be eating, at a certain meal, right? And that takes some time. I mean, for me as an adult, yeah, I've gotten a little better at it, but I know parents are more in charge of that, right? But again, we don't want to stop our kids from eating food either, because when they're younger, they're like they wouldn't eat anything, and now that they're like 13 or 14, they eat everything, So you're like, oh, do I want to stop that? Okay, all right. So that's how hunger affects you when you're shopping for food items. See, that's a good example because you got to be careful with those types of. So if you know that the body's tendency is to do something like that, then if you're getting to a position where you're like, you're really super hungry, you're like, I remember last time, I kind of overdid it, so I better just kind of, hey, relax and just pick a couple things that I know that I'm gonna eat, and that's just gonna fill me up. Like it's gonna fill you up, right? Things like that. So knowing that, because your emotions, when you're already at a heightened level of emotion, then impulse kicks in. Like your body's tendency is to like, oh, let me do what my body wants to do. But you have to control it. Your mind has to control your body. But when you let the body have control over the mind, right? Then a lot of these habitual things can happen. That could be good or bad, right? There's that's why I say it, start with good habits, and that way you don't get, you tend to do good habits. But if you start having bad habits, like keeping your room not clean, your car kind of messy and stuff like that, lockers not all, tidy. That's gonna carry over to how when you grow up. Trust me, it does. It affects everything. Okay, so there you go. So your experience of an item you have purchased after seeing or hearing advertisements for it. So you've already bought the item, right? And then you saw it. Let's talk about this both ways, right? So how do you feel when you haven't bought the item yet and you see it on TV and you think it's cool, right? You want to go buy it, right? So let's say you've already purchased the item and then you see it on TV again. What do you feel now? You feel like, oh, cool, I got the item on TV. I feel, ooh, yeah, I got that. Right? It's like, that's another, like another aha, like cool. It's a dopamine moment. I'll explain that to you guys. So now, when you did buy something, anybody have an example of this? I want to ask you guys, did the item work well as advertised? Whatever you bought. Or did you have an experience that was like, there's some things that you buy, you're like, oh, this is actually working really well. And then there's some things that I bought in my life that I thought, man, it sucks. But anybody have an experience specifically that they could remember? Do? Oh, I was wondering if you had a story, because if you have a story that you remember that's something like you bought something and then you thought it was gonna work like this, but it didn't work as it planned. You do? What? Sure, yeah.
I just saw these samples
Okay.
on TikTok and I'm like, those are pretty cool. So I ordered them like 2 weeks ago. And then yeah, they work a lot better. Like they're really good.
They work better than you expected than you had seen them?
Yeah, because we went to summer camp 2 weeks ago and people had them, they're like, yeah, they're pretty cheaply made, like they're really bad. And then I got those and then like, they look pretty good.
Okay.
I don't know what they're talking about.
Well, there are some instances, right, that when certain batches of products are made, like they're made with different vendors, and then like some vendors are like they use better quality materials, and they come with better products, and sometimes they're ordered from another country, namely China, right, and then they make these products that are like cheaply made, and then they still go to the same reseller, right? So like that's possible. That's not unheard of. But yeah, so you might have gotten lucky that the batch you got was like sturdy, good quality. That's good. That's good. Sometimes again, it's a coin flip a lot of times, especially and that's why do you go for a brand name, right? Because you know that if you liked the brand in the past, the chances of you experiencing the same thing again with the same brand is likely better, right? That's but why do people change brands, right? Because they have a bad experience because something while they were in a meeting, the laptop failed. Like, I'm never buying another Microsoft laptop ever again, right? Because I don't want that to happen to me, right? In a meeting, right? So those kind of things, right? So that's what experience when you purchase something. Okay, EFG. Okay, so what do you know about what happens when you put money into a savings account? Brady. Yeah. Yeah, so the bank that will always show you the same amount of money in your account. They'll never change that, right? But they will on the back end lend it out to make money, like credit or whatever, mortgages, things like that. And then they'll give you a certain amount of interest, which is very low right now, by the way. They don't give very much interest right now for savings accounts. But that's good. You do understand what's going on with the savings account, right? So, but one thing to understand also, right? But what does it feel? Has anybody here actually ever deposited money in a savings account at the bank, right? What was the feeling? What were some of those feelings you got when you deposit the money? Okay. Have you done it recently or no? Do you have an account now or no? So you just deposit it online or ATM or how do you? You did it. No, I'm talking about like now. We haven't deposited. Okay. So, but what, like, anybody, when you save the money, let me ask you, because I'm trying to find out, I'm trying to get a response from your experience, right? So when you put money into an account, well, let's say you guys have a piggy bank when you guys were little. You guys saw that. You guys saw that, right? So let's consider that a savings account, right? That's a savings account, like in the literal sense, right? It's a little bank, right? Put the money in it. So what was that feeling like when you stuck that money into the piggy bank? You know, when you were smaller, if you remember that feeling. Was that a good feeling or a bad feeling, or was it just like whatever? What did you? What it was? If anybody recalls any good? Was it? It was a neutral feeling, right? Anybody else had a different feeling there? Like, you know, did it feel like, oh, hey, your parents told you to save the money, but in my mind, it was like I just couldn't spend the money. Like, what was your thoughts on that? So I'm trying to understand what was your thought process, or like what were the feelings you were feeling when you were going through that? Putting money in the piggy bank, or you know, or putting this, or going to the bank, going to the teller and like depositing the money through the window, anything like that. If you had that experience, that's why I'm asking. So you don't remember? Okay, well, if you don't remember, you don't remember. It's fine. But all I'm trying to understand, I'm trying to gauge some of the responses of like, you know, hey, what? Because I think for younger people, that concept of putting money away is literally just like, well, okay, I just can't spend the money anymore. Then I don't. That's why I say it's a neutral feeling. Like, well, it's not a bad thing. I still have the money, but it's not a good thing because I can't spend it, right? So I think it's a general consensus for most younger people, right? So understand that consensus. What do I mean by consensus? Understand that everybody kind of feels that way as a young person, and then you should start shifting that feeling to a little bit more joy, especially when you start doing things like saving, you know, saving and investing. You're not that far away. Who here is around 13 years old now? 13 years old? How about 15? 15? Anybody close to 18? No, so you're close to 18, right? So what if I told you, Carson, right? Yeah. That if you were to save $5 a week, starting say $5 a week into some kind of stock, and I give you 3 years to do it, and by 3 years you'll have $30,000. Would you start doing it? Yes. Yeah. So, but see, the thing is, I'll tell you right now, what I didn't tell you was I started with $5 a week, and I got so into it that it got to like $250 a week, $300 a week. That's now I'm doing that, right? So now I'm closer to like 50,000. And like, you know, in the 3 years, you can do it. I'm telling you can do it. And you know, the income you need to have isn't really with the amount of responsibilities you may or may not have. Chances are you have a very good opportunity to save a lot of money, but you have to fight the emotions of wanting to spend it. That's I mean, I remember that as a child. I remember that, you know, being 18 and going, ooh, I got a credit card. Ooh, what can I do with this? You know, that's it's going on in my mind. I remember that. So, but remember, start shifting that feeling. Try to have more appreciation, which is actually a pun is intended there, because money appreciates over time if you put it into some kind of investment. Right? So if you appreciate that more, and you start to connect the feeling. So you guys play video games. Anybody here do you play like phone games? Play phone games? No, not even any games. No. Like, do you like the feeling of winning? Like, you like the feeling of winning something, right? That's a release of dopamine. The feeling of winning, like I won. That's dopamine release into your system. Because that release of dopamine, it feels so good that you want to do it again. That's why some people are really competitive. Because when they win, they get that, oh yeah, won, and then it's just like it's a feeling you want to repeat. But think of saving money as winning a game, winning a video game. I'm not kidding. This is like I'm trying to give you some. If you want it, you know, anybody remember what up, down, left, right DA does? Anybody know what that is? Anybody have a clue? I'm that old now, because that used to be like the secret combination on the controller to give yourself like multiple lives in the video game, you know, like a cheat code. Now I know you know what a cheat code is, right? right? You put into a game and then it gives you all kinds of free stuff, right? Well, I'm literally giving you guys some cheat codes, like for life, right? Because if you can shift that over, if you can trick your brain into giving the reward center when you put money away in a savings account or something an investment, right? That changes your life. Remember the last time we met, I showed you saver A and saver B, the story of two savers, right? If you do it early and you have more time for the money to grow, you almost don't need to put any more money in, and you'll make more money than the person who starts later. Right? So that's an important concept. Don't wait to save money. Right? Don't wait. Waiting, you know, they say time is money, right? So waiting is money lost. Right? Think about that. Waiting is money lost. Right? If time is money, then waiting is money lost. Right? So charitable giving. Okay, so what is charitable giving? What do you generally do when you're giving to a charity? Okay, that's one, right? Charitable giving can also be materials or food or your other things that are necessities, right? So not just money, right? So charitable giving, right? The purpose, what is its purpose? If I'm giving something to a charity, it's because I feel like what? Great. You think it's for a good cause, right? So, you know, when you give money to a nonprofit organization, right? They have a mission, right? For instance, here, this office here, right? We're a job placement assistance nonprofit organization. So we help people that are on unemployment get jobs, right? So if you want to donate to the nonprofit, then we're going to use that money to help people get jobs, right? So that's the charitable. That's the purpose of it, right? But why do we do it as people? Why do you think some people are just like, oh, I'm gonna check here? There's a few reasons for it, but I want to touch on why we do it. To help other people, right? But what does helping other people do for you? Makes you feel better, makes you feel good, right? Okay. That's a release of oxytocin in your system. Generosity. When you help somebody that's in need, your body releases oxytocin. You feel good. It feels great to help somebody. So like, hey, I'm a tutor for math, right? And I help somebody understand the concept of algebra. Whoa, I feel good. That's a good feeling. The concept of, for you guys, when you start understanding the concept of saving and investing in money, I feel good about that. That gives me oxytocin because I'm sharing something that I've experienced myself. And then if I could help you avoid some of the stuff that I went through that I didn't need to, then I feel like I did something good, right? I felt like I was being generous with my resources, right? So that's a good thing. So that's why charitable giving is important. Okay, and then the last one here is what can you do? What can you do to better manage your money? What are some? Let's talk about that. This is a discussion question, right? What's some things that we can do to better manage your money? Someone's gonna, yeah. Save it, not spend it, right? That's a good one. That's always a good one, right? So, but if besides just not spending it, right? How else can you keep track of it? What's a way to keep track of your money? Budget it using technology. Use technology to budget. Use Excel if you know how. Use apps that are available, that are out there to help you manage your money. As you get older, what's going to happen is you're going to have an account here, you're going to have an account there, you're going to have an account here, you're going to have an account there, and you'd be like, crap, I can't manage all of this. Not that I can't, it's a lot to manage. So you can use technology to help you organize some of that stuff. And there's a lot of different programs out there. They'll come up with brand new ones by the time you guys are 18. So I'm not going to tell you about what that is. All right. So now that I'm done with that section, I want to show you guys this video. It's on YouTube. YouTube has some really good stuff. You got to find the real good stuff and not just all the junk that's on there. Believe me, it's there. So this one, I wanted to show the screen, right? So let's see here. I got okay. All right. This one is about 9 minutes long. Okay, so anybody know this author, Simon Sinek? Probably never heard of him. That's fine. So it's not going to be him speaking. You see his picture there, but there's going to be a lot of pictures being shown along with the words. Okay, so you really need to pay attention to this. And if there's some words that maybe you don't like, you haven't defined yet, write them down and let's discuss it, right? But this is going to be something that there's four. Okay, so I'm going to write them down so that way you can reference them. Okay, so the first one is going to talk about is called endorphins. Anybody know what those are? Dopamine. This one is called serotonin. And then oxytocin. And then there's a fifth one talks about, it's called the stress hormone. What's that called? Oh, cortisol. These five. These are some things that I know you guys are like, oh, this is gonna, I want to introduce these to you at least now, so you're aware of them. You may not process them. You may not process them yet, like as far as like it makes them make a lot of sense. But I invite you, okay, I invite you to watch this particular video like a few years down the road, if you remember, okay, because it's going to help you become good leaders. Why do I say that? Why do I say that helps you become good leaders? Because once you understand how people react to certain stimulus, like emotions, right? How to get people to like, here's an example, right? Have you ever like been in front of anybody who was a really good motivator? You've ever had? Yeah, right, yeah. Well, yeah. But anybody here, has anybody here ever sat in front or listened to like someone got you like excited to do something, motivated, right? Like there's maybe you haven't like somebody inspired you to pick up a new sport or a sport or a hobby. Do you guys remember anything like that? Here's an example, maybe, and maybe you can relate to this example, right? Let's say a younger person, like someone who was like 10 years old, 9 years old. Anybody know who Shaun White is? That name something like Shaun White, right? You know Shaun White. What's he do? Snowboarder, skateboarder, right? So some 10-year-old sees him and he goes, wow, that's amazing. I want to do that, right? What did he do? What did that kid experience? Motivation or inspiration, right? So this is what I'm trying to share with you guys. This is something that, this will help you become good leaders, because I'd rather inspire people to do something versus tell them, hey, look, you gotta know what or you have to listen to me. You know what I mean? Like, do what I say, right? If I have to tell you that, then it's a how to achieve a blissful life. This is a really good one. All right, there we go.
Inside our bodies are chemicals that are trying to get us to do things that are in the best interest of us. They are endorphins, dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin. Endorphins. Endorphins are designed to do one thing and one thing only. Mask, physical pain.
Mask hides it, right?
If you're a runner, if you've heard of it in runner's high, what's happening is when that runner's out there pushing their bodies harder than they've ever pushed before, they feel good. And then an hour later, they're in pain for damage they caused their muscles an hour before. Endorphins. They're the sign from mask, physical pain.
All right, before I move on, you guys ever do like a PE or like sports, right? So when you're working really hard, right, and then like you're starting to feel that energy, that's the endorphins kicking in. Okay, dopamine.
Dopamine is the feeling you accomplish something you set out to accomplish. The whole purpose of dopamine is to make sure that you get stuff done. This is why you must write down your goals.
Okay. That's a very important part I'm stopping at, right? well, I'm starting to share with you guys about personal management, right? And how to be better at not just saving money, but managing yourself, right? Personal management, right? Writing down your goals is very important because you need to visually see the goal for you to achieve it. Okay, so listen to this.
A logical reason for that. Very, very visually oriented animals. You have to be able to see the goal to biologically stay focused. And every time we achieve a goal that makes us feel like we're making progress to the vision we can see, we keep going and going and going until we achieve something remarkable. Able to see it. Dopamine. Dopamine comes with a warning. Dopamine is highly, highly, highly addictive. Here's some other things that release dopamine. Alcohol.
Can't do that yet.
Nicotine.
Can't do that yet.
Gambling.
Can't do that yet either.
Your cell phone.
Cell phone, you guys have some already.
We can also get addicted to performance in our companies.
Or what else? Video games. We saw at the beginning, right? They're playing video games, right? That's another thing that releases dopamine too.
All they do is give us numbers to hit,
This is
numbers
where
to
your
hit, numbers to hit, and a bonus
performance.
you get, and a bonus you get, and a bonus you get. All they're doing is feeding us with dopamine, and we can't help ourselves. All we do is want more, more, more.
So in the corporate world, right, when companies try to give you all of these goals to meet and then goals and rewards to meet, that's what they're trying to get people to do is to do work based on the reward, right? So that can be dangerous too, because then
The thing we know about dopamine addicts is they will do anything to get another hit. Sometimes
Addicts-
it's a sacrifice of their own resources and their relationship.
imagine that.
Dopamine is dangerous if it is unbalanced. Serotonin is responsible for feelings of pride, status.
Pride and status. Okay, what is pride and status in the terms of for you as students in school? What do you have pride in? Anybody can say maybe you have pride in maybe you have a project you accomplished, right? So maybe you started something, you got recognized for it, for doing whatever that, like let's say you do anybody did scouting for food when they're in scouts or you know, like you're trying to raise like do like a fundraiser for something, right? So and then let's say after the fundraiser, the scout group got rewarded with like a pizza party, right? So that's, you know, like something like that, right? This is the effect of serotonin.
Why public recognition is very important. We are social animals and we need the recognition of others. This is why we have commencement for graduation. You could get an email that says, congratulations, you fulfill all the requirements for graduation. Please print out the PDF of your diploma. Wouldn't feel so good, right?
You remember last year with who graduated in 2020? And I hope no one here did, like any like 8th grade or anything like that. You did? So that must have like, how did you feel? How did you guys feel about 8th grade? You kind of, you were okay with it? I mean, how about, was okay? Well, now you're saying, now you're, it's a coping mechanism now. You're like, okay, I'm okay with it now because it's already happened, right? But when you were going through it, what did you feel? Did it kind of suck, right? Because you were supposed to get this 8th grade, you know, party and all that, right? So imagine that we don't, you know, you go to college, you go to high school, right? And we don't do a graduation for you. We say, oh, here's your diploma. We just email it to you. Would that, how would you feel about it? That wouldn't feel so good, right? That's why they do this commencement. Serotonin helps when you feel good. Guess what? Your body's gonna try. Well, guess what you want to do? You probably want to try to do the activity again because it feels good, right? So that's what neuroscience is understanding, is what gets us to do things because we understand our bodies more, right? That's the thing about it, right?
So instead, we have a big ceremony to recognize the accomplishment, and we put our family, and our friends, and our teachers, all those in
It's
our
pre-COVID,
tribe,
you can tell, right? They're not wearing masks.
our backs as we've made it through. And then we show up on that day, we go up on that stage, and we take our diploma. It feels great. We feel our status rise. We feel our pride go up. Here's the best part about serotonin. the exact moment that you took your diploma, you felt that surge of serotonin go through your body. Your parents sitting in the audience also got a surge of serotonin, also felt an intense pride watching you graduate. This is what serotonin is trying to do. It's trying to reinforce the relationship between parent and child, coach and player. The caregiver and the one who is grateful for the support they are given.
It's that serotonin.
The problem is, you can trick serotonin.
You can trick
We
serotonin.
live in a materialist society, so we judge status very often in our country based on how much money you make. So any conspicuous display of wealth raises your status. This is why they put the logos on the outside.
Logos on the outside.
No good on the inside.
Like the logos on your glasses, right? Oakley's or whatever.
Your confidence rise when you put on the stuff.
Feels better when you have a logo on your
Showing this
clothes,
display of status feels great.
especially with a good logo.
Real relationship that was reinforced because of it. You trick the system. That's why we keep trying to accomplish things like accumulate more and more.
Be careful with that.
Yet we never feel successful because there was no relationship.
Be careful with that. That feeling of wanting to accumulate things because you feel successful, but you feel empty because there's no relationship that you're building with it with another person, right? So be careful with those kinds of. You get stuck in those kind of feelings. All right, this is oxytocin.
Oxytocin. This is the best chemical of all. Oxytocin is the feeling of love,
Love,
trust,
trust.
friendship. Oxytocin is that intense feeling of safety that someone's got your back.
Safety. So you feel safe.
There are multiple ways you can get oxytocin. One way to get it is physical contact. Hugging feels wonderful. When women give birth to children, a huge surge of oxytocin in their body. This is what's responsible for the mother-child bond. It's all that oxytocin in the system. Another way you can get oxytocin is through acts of human generosity. Doing nice things for people.
Try it next time. It's good.
Our bodies are trying to get us to repeat behaviors that are in our best interest. And it's making us feel good when we see or do acts of human generosity so that we will do them. In fact, the more oxytocin you have in your body, the more generous you actually become. It gets better than that. Lots of oxytocin in your body inhibits addiction.
So did you hear that? Did you catch that? When you have oxytocin in your system, right, it inhibits addiction. So what does it do, right? Like let's say, if you feel like you're in amongst friends that got your back, that know that you can trust each other, right? That if there's someone offers hey, you want a cigarette? Like no, I'm okay. You don't need it because you feel so connected with your group or your tribe or your family, whatever the case may be. So that's another thing to understand.
It boosts your immune system.
Boosting your immunity.
It makes you healthier. That's why happy people live longer.
Happy people live longer.
It's why couples live longer. It increases our ability to solve problems. It increases our creativity.
Creativity.
It's really good for us, and it's not addictive. It just feels great. There's one more chemical I haven't told you about. Cortisol.
Cortisol.
Cortisol is the feeling of stress, the feeling of anxiety.
You feel that?
We share
Stress.
these chemicals with all the social networks. Cortisol is designed to keep us alive. It is the first stage of fight or flight. It makes us paranoid. It makes all of our senses hyper attuned to look for danger. It injects glucose into our muscles to make us stiff and ready to go in case we need to fight or flight. It increases our heart rate like crazy. Cortisol, to get all of that extra energy, it needs to shut down non-essential systems. So it shuts off things like growth. You don't need your fingernails to grow at that moment. Shuts it off. The other thing it shuts off is our immune system. You don't need it in that moment. The problem is you're not supposed to have cortisol in your system all the time. You're supposed to have it in and then gone. One of the things cortisol does, it inhibits the release of oxytocin. Biologically, if you work in a high stress environment where you don't feel safe, you will biologically less empathetic and less generous.
Right. So that's before I continue on with that one. That's a very important, another important concept to understand. Right. So if you're always stressing yourself, if you're always stressed out, either by your environment or by your own mind, right? Your own mind is enough to cause you stress, right? You're actually releasing cortisol into your system at all times, right? And when you're doing that, what did he say, right? Your growth stops. So your hair stops growing, your fingernails stop growing. That's why people, if you've ever seen people get really stressed out, some people have like spots in their head, like they get alopecia. It's stress related. So I used to have it before, alopecia. I don't know if anybody ever have that, but what does it mean? It's when you're stressed out, stuff stops growing, right? And what does it do too? It weakens your immune system. So if you get hit with something, that could really take you out for a while. So stress, right? Cortisol, you wanna you don't want to start thinking about stressful things in your life as a young child, right? As a younger person, you don't want to do that yet. But as you get older, you have to learn how to better manage stress in your life, right? So that you don't get sick as fast. It's really true. It's really true. You can get sick by just being stressed out. This already proves it. Neuroscience already proves it, right? So be careful with that as you go to college, right? When you start, midterm exams or whatever, you don't want to overwhelm yourself to the point where you're like shut down, right? So
Alcoholics Anonymous has been highly effective for decades. Alcoholics Anonymous knows that if you master all 11 steps but not the 12th, you will drink again. The 12th step is the commitment to help another alcoholic. Service.
service to another.
Service to another. Oxytocin wins. Serotonin wins. The more we look after each other, the safer we feel, the more we feel like we belong, and the more we will work together to confront the dangers outside.
So there, I'll pause it right there. Okay, so in our world today, so here's some real world things that are going on now that you will be eventually be a part of because you're part of this real world too, right? Is that corporate companies, when you start working for companies, right? Companies have agenda to produce a profit, right? To be productive in the company, right? To make gains. But how that applies to people is that they make people do things that maybe sometimes they feel like out of the question or sometimes too much. So you got to understand that the better leaders of the future that's still a club that exists in high school, like the future leaders of America. Is that a club still? Yeah. So for I mean, I'm not saying join the club or anything, right? But if you want to be a part of the greater solution of how to become how to lead a better world in the future. Because here's the reason why I'm bringing this up, right? And the reason why I chose to volunteer my time to be a merit badge counselor for personal management that affects finances, right? The big portion of it, right? Is that a lot of parents feel, and I don't know if you feel this yet, but schools don't really teach you guys how to handle money, and they won't. It's a liability for the school. They can get sued if they give you information about how to handle money and then it's wrong. So that's why no one does it, right? So and as a nonprofit, we provide the service, so it's harder to take a nonprofit into litigation, right? So you really can't, because we have no money already anyway, right? So it's hard. You can't really sue a company with no money already. So but why is that an issue, right? So as parents now, as a parent now, and I'm sure some parents also are with me on this, right? We need to talk about how to prepare you better for what's coming up, right? And this is the way to do it. So this is what I just showed you here. If it doesn't register with you, that's fine. I get it. It's kind of, it's a little bit on the advanced side, but I know you guys are smart. You know, you guys are, you kids nowadays are, you know, are doing things that parents can't do with their devices, right? And that tells me that there's some ability in your minds and your brains that can absorb this information that you will process later on. You're like, oh, you know what? It just lit up a portion in your brain as you get older. You're like, oh, I remember that video I saw talked about some neurochemicals, and you're like, and then something will click, right? That's my hope. That's my hope. So I hope you got any questions from that, or anybody have a comment or anything that kind of, hey, that was cool. I didn't know that before, kind of thing. Anybody have anything to share regarding that? No? Okay. Yeah, anybody? Yeah. But what did you find interesting? Anybody find anything interesting from the video? Can't really. All right. Yeah. What do you think?
Cortisol is supposed to be like in your body, like in and out for like now, like,
A lot longer, yeah. If you think about, and here's a reality today. Here's a reality that's going on. It actually probably started to become more of a reality in like the mid to late 2000s, right? So you guys know who here uses like Instagram, you know, TikTok and Twitter, right? Okay, you guys do that. So you guys know that a lot of people that, you know, that show their lives on Instagram is like made up, right? So, but what does it do to us still as young people when you look at somebody's, you know, like, you know, new post or whatever, you're like, oh man, it can still spark some feelings of what? Jealousy, like, oh man, that's cool. FOMO, you know, like, you know what FOMO, you know what FOMO is, right? Right? So, you know, when you know what FOMO is? Fear of missing out. So when you have a fear of missing out, what happens, right? It makes you do it motivates you to do something. That's the wrong motivation. That's, you know, FOMO is the wrong kind of motivation. Don't. So what else can FOMO lead to, right? Like, oh, hey, you know, this is an obscure example, I know, but this is an example. Like, oh, well, I better buy this thing because if I don't, then a lot of people won't think I'm hip, I'm up to date, or whatever, right? That's a FOMO. That's a you know, almost like a jealousy. Not quite jealousy because you can afford to buy it, but you don't need it, right? So that's one of the things that I really wanted to share with you guys. So, all right, 7:17. Okay, well, I could probably let you guys, you know, get going. You know, probably like closer to after 8. So, anybody here need to use the restroom or anything in a break? You need to use it. You know what the key is? All right, so we'll take a quick little, let's say like 5-minute break here. It's my clock says 7:17. So I'll you know, by 7:23. There's a note. No, this is just gonna walk around and say, yeah.
Just be careful and stick together.
Yeah, buddy system. The restroom's across the way. Like it's just across the.
What else is on
No.
the floor?
They're probably shut down for the day already. Yeah, there's no more other tenants here for the day.